Hi everyone, my name is Bree. I am a non-traditional student here at Roberts. This is my second year in the program. And today I'm going to be doing a presentation, my religion and spirituality presentation. It's on the connection between spirituality and substance abuse and recovery. I feel like this topic can kind of get overlooked sometimes, just because there's that connection there between spirituality and substance abuse recovery, but the topic itself intertwines so many things like science, psychology, humans, the human spirit. It intertwines so many things just because recovery isn't only about abstaining from substances, but it's about having purpose, meaning, connection, things like that. So when we talk about spirituality, at least in my case, when I talk about it, I'm not only necessarily talking about religion, even though for many people religion is one way to experience spirituality, but in the context of recovery, I would say spirituality is about a sense of purpose. Like I said before, it's that connection, it's that meaning, but it's to something larger than yourself, larger than just you and who you are. So it kind of gives you that inner peace in a way, I would say, and that guidance that you need, that moral guidance. So just based on there's so many research, so many things that consistently keep showing that individuals who do engage with spirituality, who are connected through that, whether that be through mindfulness, prayer, meditation, there's so many ways that you can be connected to your spirituality. Even if they're participating, in spirituality-oriented groups and programs, there's so many resources out there for that stuff. So the research just shows that these people tend to have better outcomes in addiction recovery. It's been thought that spirituality provides coping mechanisms, a meaning, purpose, like I said before. So all of these things can kind of overlap each other, and they will, gain more of a deeper understanding of themselves and realize that there is that higher, something larger than themselves that they want to focus on as well. So first I kind of just want to talk about the science of addiction, because it's a large topic and there's many things to go with it, and also the need for kind of connection. So substance abuse. A lot of people see that as just a habit, a simple habit that if you're experiencing that, that's your habit. But it's not only a habit. I would also say it's kind of an interplay. It's like interconnected with brain chemistry, so your social environment, psychological patterns, so many different things like that. And drugs and alcohol and substances, they kind of just they trick the brain's reward system. They trick them, and they kind of hijack it in a way, I would say, because they provide that temporary pleasure, temporary relief, and this is what leads to that cycle of withdrawal and craving and everything. So that's what leads to that, and it's the substances that's tricking the brain internally. So that means that recovery isn't just about stopping the use. It's about addressing the underlying needs that the substances were meeting. So why was that person using the substances? Was it for pain management? Was it for a social connection? It could have been for a sense of purpose. A lot of people turn to substances and alcohol and drug abuse just simply because they feel like that will give them that sense of purpose and that connection to that higher being that they're looking for. They turn to that because they think that's going to give them. It could be about emotional regulation. There's so many things, so many different reasons why people turn to this stuff. But this is also where the spirituality part of this comes in. So it kind of fosters a sense of connection to ourselves, to others, and to a larger purpose. Spirituality offers, that sustainable source of fulfillment, and drugs can't replicate that. They can't be the ones to do that. Spirituality is the one to do that. Spirituality, it's something that supports recovery. It will support this recovery. With emotional regulation, if that's why somebody is turning to drugs and alcohol, things like prayer and meditation and mindfulness and different types of prayer that bring peace. It can do that, things such as regulate emotions and reduce that anxiety that maybe would be triggering a relapse. So the spirituality portion of things can help with emotional regulation in that way. In the other way, if somebody's turning to drugs and alcohol for moral and ethical guidance, spirituality and spiritual frameworks, they provide those principles, those guiding principles that will encourage the healthier decision making, and in turn, I guess, encourage more self-respect and things like that. With community, with social support, there's so many spiritual communities, so many things like that, 12-step programs, Alcoholics Anonymous, AA meetings, you can have that sense of accountability, that connection with those things, that sense of belonging. And then spirituality also, it can give that sense of hope, that sense of meaning. It cultivates that hope, I guess I would say. It helps individuals be able to just kind of reframe their struggles as part of a larger journey. They can transform whatever they're feeling, that despair and that ache, I guess, in them, to motivation. And spirituality can definitely help them do that in a way. So I like to use the example of the 12-step programs. That's like the concept of surrendering to a higher power. That it's not about what we think it's about. It's about recognizing that recovery can't be achieved by only willpower. It has to be achieved by somebody that fosters humility, reduces the shame within them, and is open to that support and that growth, really, because if you think about it, if somebody's not open to getting that support and getting that and growing, then how will they be accepting of anything, of any of these resources, of any spirituality connections, of anything that might help them? If they have to have that willpower to want to do that, but they have to be open. They have to, in turn, be open for growth and support. So as I was saying before about the research, there's a way too much amount of research out there to go over all of it, but there's so many studies, and you can look up anything related to spirituality and recovery and substance abuse. You can type in any sentence about it, and there'd be way too many articles to look through about everything. But there's so many that does support this link between spirituality and successful recovery outcomes, and how spirituality is kind of playing a big role in substance abuse and recovery, and how these things are interconnecting with each other. There's so many things that say, spiritual engagement is relating more to improve well-being in a human, improved psychological well-being, greater adherence to treatment programs, so many different things. I think there was one study that I read about that even said that the participants who engage in regular spiritual practices, they are the ones who reported higher self-efficacy, so self-efficiency, a stronger sense of purpose, and they are the ones who recorded this. They reported this to these people. They had regular spiritual practices to engage in, and then in turn they were able to have a stronger sense of purpose. So this study kind of alone just proves this whole topic, but there's so many things out there that say all of this, and this is really crucial for long-term recovery, because when you think about it, long-term recovery in the end is the goal. It's the goal. You want somebody to be recovering long-term. You don't want them to relapse, and spiritual practices, having them regularly, make it more possible for somebody to not relapse, and for them to kind of look after themselves and have that internal growth and that internal support. And they also, you need support elsewhere as well. Everyone does. Without outside support, it makes it a little more difficult. You need that community and that family and those just resources and friends and people and everybody in your life. You need that support, and some people don't have that, unfortunately, which makes it even harder. But if they're able to be in touch with their spirituality and regular spiritual practices, then it just gives them that higher rating of stronger sense of purpose and just so many things like that, which is very crucial, especially in the long term, because obviously we want them to be long term. When it comes to, daily life, and just practical things, practical applications, spirituality and recovery, we don't always have to talk about it as from a religious standpoint or just from like a faith standpoint. You can kind of do regular spiritual practices without putting that, if somebody doesn't want to do that, without putting that on it. You can even just, talk about integrating spirituality in a way of meditating daily, or mindfulness exercise, or journaling, or participating in those group programs, seeking mentorship from people who, maybe especially people who've experienced similar things. There's so many different things that you can incorporate, that you don't necessarily have to incorporate the religious conversation behind it if that's not what somebody wants to do. And I think that's important, because there's so many people who might not want to do that, and then there's people who will want to do that. So you can never judge. You can never be biased and know kind of what somebody is going to want to talk about. So you kind of have to consider the other side of things too, I think. Recovery, like we've talked about, it's not just something that happens, somebody doesn't just recover. It's more of a journey, it's transforming, that person is transforming themselves into somebody else, who they want to be. And spirituality isn't just going to be a magic fix, they relate to each other. Spirituality isn't just going to come in and magically cure that person. It's an ally, I would say, to the journey of healing and to the recovery. It's a great ally. But spirituality isn't just going to be something that's just an automatic fix. Spirituality is something that it gives meaning, it gives hope, it helps individuals, kind of reclaim their life from that addiction. And it ties back to remembering, I think, that recovery is also not just physical or psychological, I guess. It's human. It's a human process. So when we're integrating this spirituality into recovery, we have to understand kind of that human experiences are all different, and human experience does provide those pathways for healing. So everyone's healing is going to look different as well. So I think that that's one of the greatest takeaways, is that we can connect these all we want, spirituality and recovery, and that's great. We also have to look at them from all those different standpoints that I mentioned. Somebody might not want to talk about religion. They might want different tactics, different techniques. Not everybody's the same. Every human journey has different things. Every human has a different journey and a different story, and their recovery is going to be different, but spirituality coming into that is also going to be different for everybody. But overall, we can connect the two and see a real difference in people when it comes to this kind of thing.